myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the retro show on Wednesday night where we look back at games gone by between Newcastle United and an opposition. And tonight we are looking at Newcastle against Watford. As always, I'm joined by a panel of fans who give us their fantastic stories of days gone by, and then they try to guess the celebrities who support Watford tonight, and also guess the players that played for both teams, and then knock up an 11 with the manager. But welcome to me, welcome to George, welcome to Steve Hasty, welcome to Stu Penman. Steve Wilkinson is on holiday. Before we start tonight's show, I do want to pay respect to this man.
By another normal legend, Malcolm Dix.
Malcolm Dix was a great man, a mentor to me, a good friend, somebody who got me involved in a lot of things in Newcastle, from the Time Theatre Trust to the Sport Newcastle organisation. He was always there with a bit of advice and his little cards and his bits of paper with things to do on, and somebody who just was the life and soul at times of charity work in Newcastle, but somebody who had black and white blood, and a man who... it's already been said by Sir John Hall, probably the Magpie Group would never have happened if it hadn't been for him. And he was a man who took on Westwood, a man who took on McKeague, and a man essentially who spent the rest of his Newcastle United supporting days as the honorary vice president of Newcastle United. But we will be paying a full tribute to him tomorrow night with Gibbo, special guest John Woff and Super Mac on tomorrow night's show. But just before we look at the Watford games, Mitch, just a quick word about Malcolm Dix. I guess, you as a fan, you'll be fully aware of who he was, and just a little bit about him before we start.
No, I think, I'm quite sure tomorrow, sitting with Gibbo, you'll get a lot more than what I'm really able to give. But somebody who is absolutely directly responsible for Newcastle United, that it became after McKeague. He was the heart and soul of the Magpie Group, really, and I think quite rightly, as you say. It probably wouldn't have pressed on the way it did if it hadn't been for Malcolm. But later on, is Steve and I got involved with NUFC, NUST, and then more recently, when we've all had discussions with various people, Malcolm was always there to offer support and offer insight and have a chat with you. He was very open and someone you could connect to very easily. And the advice he gave was always delivered in the right way, with the right intent, and was often quite incisive. And that was Malcolm. He would do anything for the betterment of Newcastle United Football Club.
George, I'm sure you have got your own views on Malcolm as well. I mean, he'd be sadly missed. Yeah,
definitely. And a great friend, I can honestly say a great friend, because it so happens that when he was chairman of the initially Newcastle Sports Council and then the Newcastle Sports organisation, I was chairman of North Tyneside Sports Council. So we used to do lots of things together. And one of the things we used to do was to try and get sponsorship for young people in the area, both in Newcastle and in North Tyneside. And I think over the 10 years I was involved with the Sports Council, I think between us, we must have put £500,000 into young people's hands. And it went directly to the youngsters. That was the key. And that was how Malcolm used to drive it. And I couldn't disagree with that. It was good. We did a lot of good work together. And of course, our mutual love of Newcastle United just cemented the friendship that we had. So, yes, it's a sad loss. And I've just got to say, I wish there were going to be a lot more like it. I'm not sure that there will be, but and we're all here being happy because we've got a takeover and all the rest of it. Well, those of us been around a while, we were just as happy when we saw the back of McKeague and people like that. Yeah, great friend, a great sports enthusiast, best, and encouragement to young people. That's what I used to like working with them for. All the money we used to raise went to young people, and some of them young footballers, young judo people. I mean, I see somebody regularly now who will remember Malcolm Dix. PC John Tierney in Wallsend is one of the old stages of the Northumbria Police Force. But when he was a kid, he was an Olympic judo player, and was struggling to get funds to go to training and go to the Olympics. Well, with the help of Malcolm Dix and myself, I think we raised him about 20 grand. So he did go to the Olympics. So every time I see John Tierney on the high street, I always get a wave. And I always think that wave is partly due to Malcolm Dix as well.
Steve, you and I have stood side by side with Malcolm. He was one of the first people we used to call when we had a fans protest to organise, or an evening where we wanted Newcastle fans to maybe come in and listen to what we had to say. And we always used him as a fine example of what what you had to do and what you had to be like to achieve your goals.
Yeah, he was a sounding board. He was an absolute gentleman. He always had time for you. You took on board everything he said, because from his vast experience of working and dealing with supporters and issues with the football club, you knew that you could only learn from him. You could only take all that advice on board. And it proved vital for you and I, Steve, over the years. He was, as I say, he was a gentleman. My heart goes out to his family and all his friends, because it is a sad time coming as it has just after the takeover, something that Malcolm would have been so happy about, and he would have been so looking forward to seeing the future in Newcastle United. But the one good thing is that Malcolm will have passed away knowing that the future of the football club is certainly in better hands than it was over the last 14 years. Although Malcolm wouldn't have taken any pleasure in that, he would have just carried on going to the match. He would carried on being polite, carried on being the gentleman that he was, no matter what happened with Newcastle United, because that was the makeup of him. And I'll miss him. I know that many, many other people will miss him. But as I say, my heart goes out to his family and his friends.
Yeah, Stu, just an epitaph, really, that, or a few words about Malcolm.
Yeah, I'd never had the honour of meeting Malcolm, but obviously supporting Newcastle, I knew a lot of him. And he first came to prominence in my life was for the Magpie Group, and he led by example, and he was prominent within the Magpie Group. And from what I've heard since, and he was humble and selfless. And there's some people in life that wait for things to happen, but he was one of those that would make things happen, and wouldn't rest until he got what he wanted, or at least give his 100%. And he's a doer, not a sayer. Well, he was a doer, not a sayer, and it'd be a sad loss, not just to his family, but the Newcastle United community. It's a rare breed of people who commit a lot of their own time and family time, to try and better the football club that we do. And Malcolm is one of the leading lights in that. So unfortunately, as I've never had the opportunity to meet him in person, but rest in peace, Malcolm.
Yes, rest in peace, Malcolm. And we'll be doing, as I say, a rather special show tomorrow night just to pay a tribute to Malcolm Dix. So rest in peace, mate, and look forward to sharing our memories with you. Okay.
Steve, can I add one postscript, please? Mm-hmm. You might remember in the thing that you do, Who You Met, I posted a picture of me getting a Sports England award off Kevin Keegan. And that Sport England award, to get that, you need quite a lot of nominees. And I found out much later on that one of the nominators from this part of the world was Malcolm Dix.
Yeah, top guy. Okay. On to Watford, and I'm sure we've got some interesting stories to tell and some interesting games to cover. So, Mitch, we'll start with you tonight.
Okay. Gone for a first game just simply because of personal memory of that particular day. It was certainly not the greatest game ever. Newcastle won, Watford 0 on the 24th of November, 1990. It was super cold that day. At half time, it absolutely railed it down with rain. It was totally soaking. And it's a game of two penalties, really. It was the first game that we had Tommy Gaynor on loan, rather uninspiringly so. But it was during Jim Smith's wheeler-dealer phase when he seemed to want all the players for part of the season. And he seemed to be trying everything. He couldn't at times buy with a result. It was strange. But that's certainly not my highlight of the game anyway, Tommy Gaynor. The first half, really the only thing to say about it was the first penalty. Watford got a penalty in about 20 minutes. And basically, the lad who took it, I'm not sure who took it, but he did one of those ones like Obafemi Martin's, high-flying bird type penalty. It just went over the end of the Gallagher and kept going, much to everybody's hilarity in the Gallagher. And while he did the walk of shame back to the halfway line, he got pelters. Like I say, half-time, it got really cold. It was one of those days where it just suddenly turns cold and it's absolutely reeling it down. And I'm stood in the Gallagher end with the lads. Then lo and behold, somebody who might be there appears at the window of a box, because we forgot he was in one of the boxes that day, and he's waving away while we're getting absolutely hosed on. I remember Paul Fletcher standing with a carrier bag on his head and the rain dripping off the end of his bloody nose. And we were freezing, and it was one of those days where you could have a bath in Bovril and it wasn't going to warm you up. It was really nice to be waved at by me dad at half-time. Second half, basically, much of the same. It was a bit of a drab game. The highlight of the second half before the second penalty, though, was a fantastic shot by somebody in the Gallagher end with a half-eaten apple, which intercepted David James mid-save and came off the top of his head for David James to turn round and lash it back into the Gallagher end at 200 miles an hour. And again, one of the things about that day was, you used to get days where you could have a bit of banter with a goalkeeper from one of the ends. And James got into it. And he was only a young kid. I think he was still a young'un then. And that might have even been his first proper season starting. But he was chirping all the way through. Well, of course, we got our own back on him again midway through the second half. Goal made in England, cross I think from Stimson, laid off by Kevin Dillon, handball in the box, and Mickey Quinn. Who else at that time to step up and do what he normally do, lash it into the back of the net like a rocket, man, and took the way 1-0. And actually, when I've looked back at the coverage, I can see myself in the Gallagher end because I had an unusual coat on that day. You can see me and the lads going mental. It was proper old school limbs. The game petered out really after that. Finished 1-0. Not the best game of all, but a cracking shot with an apple. And a good day out with the lads. And then Saturday night was all right.
Brilliant stuff. George, do you remember waving at Neil?
I do, yes. With pleasure. With pleasure. I mean, if what you don't know is, of course, I was getting my leg pulled all day because I was going into this box as a guest of one of the sponsors. And but it was another link which Neil knows, and you've heard we talk about the sponsorship with the North of England Building Society. Well, when that started, there were the Sunderland and Shields Building Society who used to fund an award that North Tyneside Sports Council used to do. But then they took over other building societies and became the North of England Building Society. And they decided to take a box and try and schmooze, it's St James's Park with the idea that they might become sponsors of Newcastle United. But unfortunately, it didn't work for them. But I got a few nice days out, and that was one of them when I was waving to the lads. It was a horrible day. It really was. It was a bitter day. So that's it. Yes, I do remember.
Brilliant. So give us your first story then.
Well, my first when we did Watford, it took us back to last week when we did Wimbledon, because the first thing I did with Wimbledon was, well, you know, who are they? What's their history? What they've been doing? And of course, with Wimbledon, it's not very much. It was hardly any history at all. And I thought the same thing. Well, Watford, well, I don't know a lot about them. Until we got involved with them in the Championship and the Premiership. What have they been doing since the beginning? Well, unlike Wimbledon, they've been a football club since 1881. Would you believe it? And they were Watford Rovers until 1888, and then about 1920 they eventually got involved in the Football League, and were up and down in the Southern League and in the lower leagues, but became associated with the Football League. And in 1922 they became Watford at Vicarage Road. Their old ground still exists. It's the Hertfordshire Sport and Games Association, and it's Games Association because they still play things like croquet and other lawn games like that, which is quite novel. And of course, just across the other side of that games place is the big rivals, Luton. Luton aren't that far away from them, and they're the big rivals, but they're very rare. Over the years, very rarely have they met. So 1922, and they have a good history, which I quite enjoy reading about, because, as I say, Wimbledon, there wasn't any history at all. So my first game is Saturday, the 2nd of March, 1985. And we're playing Watford. It's Newcastle 3, Watford 1. And the reason I picked this game, A, yes, I was there, and B, in my personal opinion, this is one of the best games that I saw under the management of Jackie Charlton. There weren't many, I've got to say. And what's other interesting about it is that quite often these days, when you see some teams that come and they're all giants, and we seem to be the ones that are lacking in physicality. Well, on this occasion, it was us that were the giants. I mean, if you look at the team, John Anderson, Brown, Hurd, Clark, Roder, Beardsley and Megson were the little ones, and then George Riley, Cunningham, and Chris Waddle. Well, the vast majority of them are 6-footers and big lads. But Beardsley and Megson were the ones to add the guile. But I have to say, guile or not, it was a very entertaining game. And I think, as I say, for me, one of the best games I saw under the management of Jack Charlton. First half was end-to-end, but ended just before half-time with a Cunningham goal, a typical Cunningham goal, across from Beardsley from the right, and coming in on the left-hand side of the 6-yard box. Cunningham met it with his head, and it flew past Sherwood, their goalkeeper, and into the roof of the net, and that was us 1-0. 24,943 at the match, and in the second half they were entertained by 2 more goals. One from Megson, which was a typical jinky run, an interpassing play with him and Peter Beardsley, before Megson almost had a tap in because Beardsley took it almost to the line. And then interspersed between that one and the third one, was a goal from Watford's big centre-half, McClelland, who from a corner just left everybody standing and leapt about 2 foot higher than anybody else, and hit the ball past Martin, headed the ball past Thomas in our goal. And then the last goal was George Riley in the last 10 minutes. And it was an unusual goal for him because it was a real football goal. Again, across from Beardsley, who had been tormenting Watford all afternoon. George Riley took it down in his chest, and before it hit the ground, volleyed it into the roof of the net from about the middle of the penalty area. A really good football goal, and one I think that surprised quite a lot of people in the ground. But of course, Watford had some good players as well. I mean, I looked at the fullback when I looked at this team, and I seen who the right fullback was. Bardsley, would you believe? He's been around a hell of a long time. I mean, it's either that or he's got a son. And then further downward, Wilf Rostron, who used to play for the Rams, who came to Arsenal. What a talented player he was, and he had a good career at Watford. And always a very, very good footballer. McClelland was an Irish centre half, was good. Callahan was a really entertaining winger. John Barnes was involved, and then of course up the middle was also Luther Blissett. So that there weren't a bad team, and we made them look fairly ordinary on that day. So it was an entertaining game. And the other thing I would add is that because the Watford manager on that day was none other than Graham Taylor. So if I could go back to the history was as a very average second and third division team, up and down. And then they appointed Graham Taylor as their manager. And he was there for 10 years. No wonder they built a statue to him. In the period of the 10 years that Graham Taylor was their manager, they went from being an up and down second and third rate team to being a very, very enjoyable Premiership team, first division team. And that was the legacy that Graham Taylor left. So it was good to see Graham Taylor there. And he was manager from 1977 to 1987. And if you look at what Watford did in those 10 years, no wonder they built a statue to him. So good memories from a game which, as I say, for me was one of the best games we had under Jack Charlton's management. And for the first time for a lot of years, we were the big guys, not the little runts running around after other people.
Great stuff.
That's
all right,
my first one.
Steve, over to you, mate.
Right. Listen, it's interesting listening to George there talking about the history of Watford. And I looked up as well and I found out that other than 2 FA Cup ties, we didn't play Watford until 1978, which I found was amazing.
Yeah.
We played them in 1924 and we played them in 1932 in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
We also played them in the League Cup. Sorry, in 78, we played them in the League Cup. It was the following season, 79, when we played our first league game against them. And obviously that was because we'd been relegated. But the game I'm picking is the 22nd of August, 1991. What can we say about that? Well, we went into the season, 1991, 1992, with no signings. We didn't sign a single player. So that was kind of unfortunate, but it's something that's rang true on a number of occasions since with Newcastle United. Well, that's the first game of the season. We played Watford in our second game, which was this one. And we went out, and the manager at the time was Ozzy Ardiles. He'd come through in the previous season, the season that Mitch is talking about, where Jim Smith got the sack. Ardiles comes in. And the team he selected was Pav in goal. We had Bradshaw and Elliott as fullbacks, and we had Kevin Scott and Steve Watson as centre-backs. Gavin Peacock, Clark, O'Brien and Franz Carr in the midfield. And up front, we had the dynamic duo of Andy Hunt and Mickey Quinn. Now, I think the theme that's running through that is that's a fairly young and ambitious team, which tended to be what was known as Ardiles' kids. I think it was Alan Hansen said you'd win nothing with kids, and he was right, wasn't he? We all know that as far as Newcastle United were concerned anyway. But the game was actually billed as a Tottenham v Tottenham game because Steve Perryman was the manager of Watford at the time. Went into the game, as I say, first goal came after only 10 minutes. It was Andy Hunt. Ball was knocked through by Elliott. It was knocked on by, I think, Gavin Peacock. And Andy Hunt was in the sort of inside left position, as George would call it for us oldies. And he got into the box, lovely knockdown, as I say, took the ball in his stride, and he hit the ball with his left foot, which he could do. I always thought that he was a really decent player. And he hit the ball at the bottom corner past the keeper. So we're 1-0 up at 10 minutes. Right, well, the equaliser came after 27. A chap called Nicholas scored it, and he took advantage of what I could only describe as a calamitous error by Pav in goal. Cross came in deeply, sort of came in from deep and went to the sort of centre of the box, landed round about the 6-yard box. Pav went up for it as he was challenged, and he dropped the ball, and it cascaded and landed in Nicholas's feet, and it was basically a simple tap in. So there we were, 1-1, 27 minutes gone. Well, to go to the second half, then we got Luther Blissett, who's somebody again who George mentioned. Luther Blissett latched onto what again was another mistake by Pav. This time the cross came over, and he was challenged at the back post, completely lost his direction, and the ball was knocked back. And Luther Blissett put a diving header in, which probably risked scraping his nose on the line, because he was so close and so low to the ground when he knocked it in. Newcastle's defence, very similar to what we've seen this season on occasions, completely static and didn't react as the ball came across over, and it was tapped in at the far post. So that was 2-1. And then we got a. He didn't score that many goals, but this was a very, very clever little goal. Ball was knocked down to Mickey Quinn. Mickey Quinn actually went round somebody with the sometimes speed that Mickey Quinn could show, and he hooked the ball back into the path of Lee Clark, who was running in. Lee stroked the ball beautifully, but unfortunately against the goalkeeper. But surprisingly, the ball pops up from the goalkeeper, who hasn't managed to get a grip of it, and it lands perfectly for Clarkey, because his momentum's carried him in, and he jumps up and he beats the goalkeeper in the air, and he knocks it into the net for 2-2, and that's it. Basically, after that point, the game petered out. 2-2. It was one of those games. Quinn and Clark, they could form they were obviously good mates off the pitch, and there was this way about them that they knew where each other were going to be, which was good to see. But it was one of those games, as I say, that petered out. But what did it show us? It showed us that there was a soft underbelly with that team. I think we lost the next game. We then won a game. We got our first win after about 4. But very similar to this season, we had to go. We haven't managed it yet, but this particular Ardiles' team had to go about another 11 or 12 games before it got a win under its belt. And that was really setting the scene with Newcastle United at that particular time. Ardiles couldn't buy a win. Newcastle couldn't buy a win. And we started to become a bit adrift at the bottom, or certainly lower down. And I think really the rot set in then. And that's when, people like Malcolm Dix, who we've mentioned, God rest his soul, and Sir John Hall, and the rest of the Magpie group were really sort of, they got control of the football club. They really needed to get control, and it moves on. But that was my first game, guys. 2-2 at home, second game of the season, under Aussie Ardiles.
Great stuff. Stu, over to you for your first story.
First one is a follow-on from, it's only about 6 weeks after the Wimbledon game I talked about last week, the FA Cup game, where we had a crowd of 16,000. We won 3-0, and if you remember at the start of the season, we'd sold Peter Beardsley. So the stand that's now called the Melbourne stand, we were all fearing it was going to be renamed. It should be named the Peter Beardsley stand, wasn't it? And because we lost him, we thought, right, we're not going to win anything. There's a chance we could go down, but we end up finishing this season 8th. So losing Peter Beardsley was no sacrifice at all, really, was it? So 2 weeks, come 2 weeks after the ultimate shithousery by Kenny Wharton when he had sat on the ball against Luton. For those at that game, you'll always remember that. And it was also my second birthday game of the week, because I was always called the nearest home game to your birthday, the birthday game. But we played QPR at home on the Saturday, and this was the Tuesday following it. So I managed to get 2 birthday games in that season, and we won 3-0. Now, again, what I mentioned last week, Gaza, before that Wimbledon game, he had scored 7 and 7. Well, we also had another youngster that we'd signed called Michael O'Neill, and he was on a huge run of goals. He had scored 7 goals in the previous 4 games. So it was no surprise when he scored the first one. I mean, it did look suspiciously offside. I reckon it would have been probably ruled offside with the VAR now. But anyway, he was that much confidence. He put it away like a rocket, man. And the soon-to-be relegated Hornets lacked any sting, right? As Gaza O'Neill, these are all puns coming up now, by the way. As Gaza O'Neill Goddard swarmed round their goal to leave the crowd in a hive of activity, there was a real buzz for this Tuesday night game. So I just thought I'd get all those out in one sentence. So our second goal came shortly in the second half from Kenny Wharton, believe it or not. There was a surgeon run down the wing from Sarge Paul Goddard, and his shot was blocked, and it bounced really kindly to Kenny, and his deflected shot took it and even kind of bounced under the very unlucky keeper, over his outstretched arm and hit the Gallagher net. But Kenny wasn't that bothered. He was away celebrating, you know, and he likes to score a goal for Newcastle. The third goal came from an unlikely source as well. For those who remember Brian Tinian. Now, he was a County Durham lad as well, wasn't he? But he never really got the adulation that a lot of the local lads did. You know, and it was, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why it was. Maybe it was his style or whatever. But again, we had a corner and the ball come out to Gaza, and he did a bit of wizardry on the edge of the box, and he took a strike. And he didn't. He set it up for Tinian, and he took a shot from the edge of the box. Now this shot then bounced, took a deflection, and again bounced over the keeper's arm and went into the net. You know, so there was for the Watford keeper, it was really unlucky. I mean, you could just imagine singing some sad songs for him, like. But it was the first goal it was for Tinian for Newcastle. He only scored 2, and I think it would take a cold heart to say he didn't deserve it, because I thought he was a really good player for us. 100%. He wasn't the most talented, but he gave it all, and he had the pride of being a local lad that wore the shirt for the club. You know, so he's one of a few that have managed to do it, and he scored that day as well. So that was my first game.
Great stuff. Okay, a big shout out as always to our sponsors, Spider VPN, who've been with us for months now. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your search list, and they can give you all the protection you need on your computers. Protect your passwords, your photographs, and anything else that you have on there. Big thank you to them. And to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. And also a big thank you to John at Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, for making our flyers. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner. That's it. You can subscribe for free, still doing 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to put a question on the screen or to share a memory tonight. And we're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other providers. Usually goes up about 24 hours after the show. Don't forget, still time to get tickets for your Christmas due. It's coming up rather quickly, though. November the 19th, £12 a ticket. All proceeds go to the food bank. And tickets for Peter Beardsley as well, 26th of November, the following week. And again, both events, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets from NewcastleLegends.com. Just click shop. Also, an evening with me and Suamac, Bobix for the food bank on the 9th of December. Tickets from Bobix.com. If you want to make a donation to the food bank at any time, hit NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk, and you can make a virtual deposit there. And you can also buy raffle tickets for the custom-made Peter Beardsley trainers supplied by I Am The Renovation. And the winner will be announced on the 26th of November. Those trainers will be custom-made, your size, and signed on the night by Peter Beardsley. Don't forget, NUFCmatters.com have a wide range of T-shirts, cups, etc., which John has up for sale. And don't forget as well, Every Boy's Dream is available in the back page or on Amazon and you can also have tickets from Groupon or voucher for an evening with Peter Beardsley next year, Sunday the 30th of January. Maybe a good idea as a Christmas present for a Newcastle fan. And back to you, Mitch, for your second recollection.
Can I just ask a question probably to George and Steve, to be fair? The game I've just covered, the away fixture was like a week or 2 weeks after it. They were very close to each other, and for the life of us, I can't remember why. Was it due to early cup games or anything? Can you remember?
No.
We played them at home, and then I'm sure it was only a week later we played them away in the league as well. And I thought when I first started looking at it, I thought there was like a problem wrong with the computer or something. But
what was the date?
That game was the 12th of April 1988. I know they had a load of cup games around now 88, 89, 90. But so I don't know if one of them was put off for that, but I really can't remember. But
yeah, maybe there was a postponement of one of the league games.
Yeah,
and it just,
that's right.
Went on midweek. Must have
And
been
I found
something.
a slot.
I mean,
that's the only thing I could think of. There's like cancelled from earlier in the season. That was the only because it was a midweek as well. So I thought that it was just strange that we played the return leg.
Weird things happen like that occasionally, don't they? Not very often, but they do. Yeah, strange one. Okay, Mitch, over to you, mate.
Okay, second game is a trip to Vicarage Road in a midweek in a League Cup game. I think it was the Carlin Cup still then, maybe, as it's had many names. 7th of November 2006. And this one was a real epic. Roda was under pressure, a little relief to come away from the league. I think we had a load of injuries. I think he hadn't been able to name an unchanged team for 10 games in a row or something like that. And we had the fantastic starting line of Sibierski and Rossi that particular evening. And as people say, when you get to Vicarage Road, you have to walk around the allotments to get into the away stand. And this was a bit of a weird night as well. There was loads of odd things happened. But the first half was started really well. 1-up after 3 minutes. Emery hit a free kick, and Sibierski with an outstanding header rose like it was almost Ferdinand like putting it away, which was a great way to start the evening once we'd eventually got there. It became end to end really. From that, it really made for a good game. They had a couple of chances. Stephen Taylor nearly made it 2-0, and then Duff should have made it 2-0 before the half. And when the second half picked up, it really didn't change. Apart from the home side had most of the pressure. Inevitable equaliser came on about 70 minutes. And Duff had a shot about 10 minutes after. That was one of these ones where it crashed off the bar, off the keeper, off the post, off the bar again, rattling around like a pinball bloody wizard, and then they managed to clear it. And at the time, these ties had to be settled on the night, and so we're headed to extra time. And that's when some of the weirdness started to happen. The lights that are inside the stand, not the floodlights, but the ones that lights the bit of the stands up, they started going out in places. Everybody's chanting for them to put 50p in the meter. It's getting dark in here. What the hell's going on? And actually, there was a chance the game could have been called off for that. As like I say, everybody's looking around, going, "It's getting dark now." And but thankfully, they sorted that out. Extra time kicked off. And it's not what you need when you're travelling midweek to Watford. Is extra time really? And in some respects, when the fantastically named Danny Chateau made it 2-1 to Watford on 108 minutes, it was one of those moments where you think, will this just get the game over with? But of course, you don't want to lose. You want to keep pressing everybody on. And out of nowhere, Scott Parker managed to come up with an equaliser. So we'll go to a penalty shootout. Now, everybody knows what we're recording penalty shootouts is like, and it's not very good. And so it was a case of Everybody's standing hoping that they don't go breaking my heart this time. And eventually, when it got to the sixth penalty, Harper makes a save as we both miss one each, and Zogbia steps up and puts the winning penalty away. And then as everybody goes mad, the row seat at the front collapses and everybody's falls down. For some reason, I didn't get dragged down by it, so I'm still standing. And then everybody's in a heap at the bottom of the pile. And I got home very, very late, but very, very happy. And that's my second game.
Could you cram any more in on the yellow brick road in Watford?
Well,
you missed 4 of mine there, you know. You missed 4.
You missed 4 stews, and you missed 3 of mine in the first one as well.
I wasn't focused on it, and then I realised it was a little bit of late recall. I'm thinking, hold on a minute, what else have they mentioned? So yeah, I got there.
Well, that's what friends are
when you're
for.
running the show looking for photos to try and handle the game.
It's all part of the circle of life, Steve.
It is.
I couldn't keep a straight face any longer.
George, over to you, mate.
Can you imagine what our house used to be like when my father was still alive? And some of the oldies and all used to get together with our Neil and me, and the stories were just like that, like what he's just done. It was all. Did he ever
apologise, George?
Sorry?
Did he ever apologise? Mitch?
Neil? No, why not? Why did you apologise? No.
Come on then. Sorry seems to be the hardest word.
The hardest word. Hey!
Oh dear. I better move on. We're getting a bit deep now. Actually, talking about the photographs, you probably noticed I haven't had photographs this week, and that's because when I was starting to think about doing the photographs and sending them to Steve, my computer conked out. It died on us, so I haven't had a chance to put photographs in. So apologies this year to everybody that there's no photographs. However, I found a computer whisperer on Wallsend High Street who 30 seconds after he got the computer in his hand, it was working again. So I was absolutely delighted. He didn't even charge us for it. But there you go. It's the electronic shop on Wallsend High Street opposite Lloyd's Bank. If you've got any small problems with electronic devices, there's a young guy in there who's magic. So give him a plug. Right. My next game is a home game which I attended. And while I just said that the first game was one of the best I'd seen under Jackie Charlton, well, this one was one of the worst I've seen under Rafa Benitez, and one of the most disappointing for me because, like the 40-odd, 30-odd thousand, 35,000 who went to the match, I expected that we would beat Watford this day, and we didn't even get a look in. We just weren't at the races. We got beaten 2-0, and we just weren't in it. And we're given quite a shock and a run around by 2 of their forwards. One, a lad called Success. Now there's a name to conjure with, and the other one was DeAndre Gray, who just recently signed by Rafa for Everton. And when I seen that happen, I thought, I wonder if Rafa's remembered the run around he gave us at St James's Park when we were supposed to be going to beat Watford, and he just took us apart and on that game. So we lost 2-0. First half was even, Stephen, but so boring, absolutely boring. Stuck in the middle of the park and couldn't get any goalmouth action at all, hardly. And it was one of those games where I think Rafa had to be restrained into his technical area to tell them what to do. I'm sure he was very close to running on the field at one stage, trying to G them up a bit. But what a boring first half. The other thing is that it's worth looking at the team. This is 26th of January 2019, in team is, and it'll not sound unfamiliar, Woodman, Manquino, Fernandez, Lascelles, Clark, Ritchie, Longstaff, Hayden, Kennedy, Murphy, Joselu. Now, that was one of the games where I actually realised that Kennedy was flattering to deceive. I mean, when he first came, he was absolutely tricky, could do everything. And then when he came back the second time, it was exactly the opposite. He was falling over his own feet some of the time. But that team is not far away from the team that played on Saturday, you know. And people say, well, why are we anxious about what's happening in Newcastle? Well, there's one of the reasons we're anxious, you know. It's in 2019, and that could have been the same team. Watford, no great shakes. They had some good youngsters. I mean, young Hughes, who's, I mean, for a short while, he went there from Derby, and I thought for a while when he was at Derby, we might have bought him. We were seen to be sniffing about him, and he was good in this game as well. And as I say, DeAndre Gray and Success were a thorn in our side throughout the game. So get into the second half and 61 minutes, and it was inevitable that DeAndre Gray would cause even more bother. And he hit a right foot shot from about 30 yards and left Woodward with no chance at all. And then about 10 minutes from final whistle, this young kid, Isaac Success, made a success of everything and just ran through the defence. I think he beat about 6 of them on his run and just coolly slotted it underneath Woodman to score the second goal. We just were never in it, and I never saw a team that Rafa put out that was less well organised than that one. Because the one thing I always used to think, and I know some of you do as well, is when Rafa put a team out, you had a good feeling it would be organised. Well, this is one of the ones that wasn't, in my opinion. And as I say, he was in the technical area, splitting blood. The Watford manager was Garcia, who an interesting guy, but I'm not sure where he is now. But he did quite well for Watford for a short while. And as I say, one of the most disappointing games under Rafa that I could remember seeing, and the one which I think a lot of fans would be happy to forget. But as I said, DeAndre Gray was the start to finish, and a complete thorn in our side, made our back 5, 4, whatever they tried, look really, really ordinary. So that was it. Newcastle 0, Watford 2, 35,000 in the ground. But it was pretty dire stuff, I have to say.
Great stuff. Steve, over to you, mate.
I wasn't going to do this, but I decided that, because you try to spread the games out, but I decided to go for the return fixture as well that particular season, and the reason will probably become pretty obvious. I mean, the return fixture was the 11th of January, 1992. I mentioned the team last time round, but this time we had Tommy Wright in goal instead of Pav. We had Matty Appleby playing at fullback instead of Robbie Elliott. Bradshaw was still in. Kevin Scott, Watson was still there. Clarkey was still in. O'Brien was still there. Peacock was still in the midfield. But the next 3 players came in. Roach replaced Stephen Roach. Sorry, not Stephen Roach.
David Roach.
David.
Yeah, David Roach replaced Franz Carr. Alan Thompson replaced Andy Hunt, who was on the bench. And due to an injury that kept him out for virtually the whole of the season, Mickey Quinn, we'd actually gone out and spent some money, and we bought David Kelly. So that was the team down at Watford. In 1 minute in, we're 1-0 down. Holdsworth scored within 4 minutes of a penalty, and we're 2-0 down. And this was at this point you're thinking, well, this is again, you know, typical Aussie ordealers, isn't it? You know, now 23 minutes in, David Kelly pulled a goal back. And then Ozzy went for it. He replaced a fullback with a striker. He took Bradshaw off and he brought Andy Hunt on, and Andy Hunt got the equaliser after 59 minutes. And this was Ozzy. This was young kids just going out and just, all over the pitch. Not really any plan as such, but just get out there and do your best, because that's where we're at. Again, nothing really happened after that. The game petered out. We mentioned that earlier, to the previous fixture. So 2 fixtures in a matter of 3 or 4 months against Watford, finishing 2-2. But after that started the rot, if you like. The next game, we got beat at home off Charlton, 4-3. Cascading goals. The game after that, that was an FA Cup replay. Sorry. The game after that, we played Bournemouth. Bournemouth. That's right. Bournemouth was the replay, and then we ended up with a 5-2 defeat at Oxford, and that's what really sets the whole situation and blew it apart for our dealers. And he was out. He was gone. What was the problem with that season? Well, the problem was 13 wins out of the 46 games. We brought Keegan in the February. It looked like we were doing okay. We started picking up points. And then after a win against Sunderland, we went on a run of 5 consecutive defeats. And we get to the end of the season. We've got the last 2 games where we had to win them both to save ourselves from the drop. And we managed it, as we all know. And again, we talk about history. We talk about goals. We talk about David Kelly and the goal at Portsmouth. We talk about that Leicester game. But what I'm getting at is the fact that we went so long to get rid of Ozzy Ardiles. Things were not going right. Yes, the club was in disarray. We couldn't spend money on footballers. We couldn't bring people in. He was stuck with the youngsters and try as he could. He couldn't buy a win. But the question would be, did we get rid of him too late? Or did we get rid of him at the right time? And you look now at this season and you think, well, at least we've got rid of Bruce early enough for a new manager who everybody's equating to possibly the Kevin Keegan of 2021, and can do something. And at least we've given him a chance. We've given him an opportunity, and we've given him a few more months than Keegan got. Yes, Keegan got us through the season by the scruff of our neck. And I just hope that that's where we're going to be with Eddie Howe as manager. But typical Newcastle and Ozzy Ardiles. You go away from home, you're getting beat 2-0, you pull it back to 2-2, and then the game peters out, and then the rest of the results, just as games move on, just capitulate like a pack of cards. So that was my second game, and as I say, I wouldn't normally pick a fixture, a follow-on fixture, but I thought the very fact that we had 2 games against Watford and 2 draws, 1 at home and 1 away, was quite unique. So that was my game, Steve.
Great stuff. Stu, finish up with you, mate.
All right. There's a lot of symmetry there as well, isn't it, Steve, when what you were saying there about that season to this season now, so hopefully we get the same results and better. My second game is, again, another November, but this was a Saturday, and I'm not going to do any Elton gags now. We've done them all. We won 2-0. It was the promotion season under Keegan, and we won our first 11 games. It was a record-breaking run, wasn't it? And then the wheels seemed to fall off slightly. We're starting to stutter because we only won 1 of the next 4, although we're still like miles ahead. For those people that supported Newcastle for a while, you always tend to start thinking the worst, because it normally does happen, although you try to stay positive with it. But there was like a nervousness in the air, and you start thinking, have the wheels come off the bandwagon? But nobody wanted to see it. No one wanted to be the jinx, and no one wanted to brag, saying, I told you that. So, but apart from one really good save from Pav, we had nothing to worry about the first half because we dominated the game. We peppered their goal. We didn't score. But our cause was helped when the referees deemed it fit to send off one of their players for 2 yellow cards in quick succession. I'm sure one of them might have been for mouthing off, because it didn't look bad. You know, you thought, oh, that was a harsh yellow. And then a minute later, he's getting sent off. So that was it. We're good 0-0 at half time. And you start thinking, right, we're 10 men. There was 2 questions. It was when's the first goal and how many we're going to score. So the first question was answered 5 minutes into the second half, and it was a really, really good move. And it's like the Keegan had a word with them at half time just to relax and be themselves. They were the better team. And it was well worked down the right wing. Venison, Rob Lee to Venison as it was. It went to Clarkey on the touchline, on the goal touchline. He knocked it back. It got jumped over by, I think it might have been Kelly at the time. And then Gavin Peacock knocked the ball in. So we're 1-0 up. So then the second question was how many? Well, the second goal comes 7 minutes after. And I did promise I wasn't going to do any gags, but the ref gave a penalty. It's as if, like, the only reason I think he gave this penalty is like sometime when he's passed Elton John must have refused him an autograph or something, because it was probably the harshest penalty I've ever seen. The lad was running back and the ball just bounced, hit his arm, which was next to his, he wasn't dangling out or anything. But we weren't complaining. We got the penalty, and Peacock took it. But when he struck it, it was an easy hit for the keeper, who saved it. And then again, for the second game I've covered in a row, the Watford keeper doesn't have much luck, because Bobby Lee come in and definitely dinked it over him to score the second. It was like Beardsley-esque type finish, the rebound. But that was that for the scoring. But it was a proverbial confidence booster, and it was a cold and damp, dark day, but we knew there was brighter days ahead, so there's a symmetry there as well with the story Steve Hasty just gave as well. So, see, I can do them sensibly when I try.
Very good. Great stuff. As always, I think people enjoy it. It just the chat nearly got too carried away, but they didn't. They calmed down in the end. But great stuff.
If you watch it back and you see Mitch's first one and my first one, unbelievable. You've got to be pinball wizards and everything, and no one said anything.
I missed out. I completely missed it because I was trying to get, with George not supplying us with photographs, I thought I better get some photographs for some of the games. As always, it's an absolute nightmare trying to find some photographs for certain games, but I got some. I did well. I got a few. I
was just going to say,
I just thought you were wigging with Steve. That's true. That's all.
We talk about our dealers and the kids. I listed them here, and like appearances wise, these must have all been teenagers, if that. Just breaking out their teens. You had Alan Thompson played 12 games that season. You had Andy Hunt played 21 games. You had Matty Appleby played 16. Robbie Elliott played 9. Alan Nielsen played 16 games. David Roach played 18 games. Steve Howie played 13. Lee Clark played 25. Stevie Watson played 23. I bet you every single one of those players, plus Kevin Scott, who played 5 games.
Lee Mackle as well.
Lee Mackle was also in the squad as well. Yeah, exactly. Those were young kids. There are players older than these lads with all of those appearances, who are barely getting a game in Newcastle's under-23s at the minute. I was there watching the last under-23s game, and you're thinking, it was a fantastic grounding under our dealers for those kids, but it desperately had to happen because there was nobody else that he could call on, And I think I think it's often harsh when people do have a go at our dealers, because of that. Well, not because of that, but have it without taking that into consideration,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also Keegan benefited from having this group of youngsters who'd already been blooded.
I was at Newcastle boys with a lot of them.
Yeah. Ah, you were. Aye.
Absolutely.
I tell you something else I picked on. Sorry, Steve. Is we haven't talked about the epic FA Cup game where the next round had been played by the time we actually settled it. That was settled with a penalty. Have you noticed how many of the games have had penalties in as well?
Yeah,
I wonder it's bizarre that I wonder if Watford's the team we've had the most penalties awarded for against or what have you. But yeah, interesting pattern to the games tonight as well.
Yeah,
somebody in the chat, Neil, mentioned the fact that we went playing that game forever and ever.
Aye.
That was 4 games, wasn't it?
Aye.
Yeah.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Some great recollections as always. That's what the Retro Show is all about. And if you haven't watched this show before, check out the playlist, the Retro Show. We've done quite a few now. We're on the final furlong, as it would be said, and we're going to be finishing off with the European special over Christmas, and we'll be talking about one game in particular in a special program. That match against Barcelona, of course, but plenty more to come over the next few weeks. We'll finish off, as always, with a celebrity round and then a players round. The celebrities, few and far between, and one person in here who was in last week as a Wimbledon fan. But we'll start off with the easy one.
Oh, yeah.
Elton John.
Aye.
Extra point for his true name.
Reg Dwight.
Well done,
Dwight.
Steve.
Right.
Yeah, Reg Dwight, of course, Elton John. Great story that Joe Allen often tells on the after-dinner circuit about when Newcastle, of course, won the FA Youth Cup against Watford. And I think they were in the bath. In the old days, they didn't used to use showers. They all used to get in a communal bath. And Elton John came in, as he would, to congratulate the Newcastle youth team on their success over Watford. And Gaza stood up and, basically greeted him. And Joe told him to sit down for obvious reasons. He just says, you better sit down. I'm sure Elton doesn't want to see anything that you've got, Paul. But it was a funny story. Tells it on the after-dinner circuit on more than one occasion. And as I say, for me, that was probably one of the memories that I've got from Watford. I didn't go to that game, but it's a story which Gaza always talks about. Joe Allen talks about it, obviously, on a regular basis. And, a piece of history, really, I guess. Okay, so Elton John was the first one. This one surprised us.
Anthony Joshua.
Joshua.
Anthony Joshua, of course. Yeah. And this is the
Steve,
one that we had.
Is that the London Mayor in front of him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Oh, no. He looks very similar to him. It's a guy who used to be involved with Amir Khan.
All right.
All right. Yeah.
He's actually
Okay.
involved in boxing. Yeah. Okay. This one is the one we had last week.
Oh,
Jerry Halliwell.
Jerry Halliwell.
Jerry Halliwell. Now we're looking for the girl on this one.
Jennifer Aniston.
Well done,
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer
George.
Aniston.
Yeah.
Now that's an
Yeah,
interesting
very
one, and it ties in with this person. And we're looking for the
Mila
name.
Kunis, isn't it?
Yeah, well done of the girl.
Yeah.
Extra point for the guy.
He's on the radio. I don't know his name. Chris someone.
Chris Stark.
Well done, Chris Stark. And Chris Stark persuaded Mila Kunis and Jennifer Aniston to support Watford.
I think did he not when he interviewed them, did he not have strips ready for them and give them the strips when he interviewed them?
That's right. Exactly. So that's your celebs. Not many at all, it has to be said. Players that played for both teams, guys.
Oh, dear me.
Stephen Glass, isn't it?
Well done,
Yeah.
Stephen Glass. Had him on the show as a guest in the past.
Jan Matt.
Jan Matt.
Harold Janmaat.
Harold Janmaat, yes.
Chopra.
Yep.
Michael Chopra, of course, played for the Hornets.
Goslin.
Yeah,
Dan Goslin.
Ryan
Wow.
Gosling.
Fits all. One size.
Fits all.
One size fits all.
Yeah, played Newcastle on loan.
Rob.
Oh, it's Rob.
No,
Rob Elliott.
Rob Elliott, correct.
Musa Sissoko.
Sissoko.
Mr. Sissoko,
Yeah, mine.
currently plying his trade down there at the moment.
Nigel Pearson.
Nigel Pearson.
A man with more clubs than Jack Nicklaus.
John
John
Barnes.
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 John
A
Barnes.
very young John Barnes.
And last but no means least,
Oh.
Is that Eric Steele?
Aye.
Oh, I know.
It's not Eric Steele.
It's George Riley, isn't it?
George.
Rambo
Of course it
Riley.
is.
Riley.
Rambo
George
Riley.
Riley, yeah.
Well done. He's obviously, slightly older in that picture than he was when he played for Newcastle or Watford, of course.
Moved at the same pace.
Moves at the same pace, allegedly. Mitch, go on then. Give us your 1 to 11, mate.
Okay, I went with Eric Steele in goal, just to be contrary. Right back, Jan Matt. Left back, Danny Rose. Centre back pairing of Glenn Roder and Mike Williamson. And Roder's my player manager. The right midfield, Andros Townsend. Left midfield, Stephen Glass. And in the centre, Musa Sissoko and Dan Gosling. And then up front, John Barnes playing off of big Rambo O'Reilly.
Okay, good stuff. George?
Hardly any different, actually. Rob Elliott in goal. Jan Matt, Rose, Dan Gosling, Mike Williamson, Glenn Roder, John Barnes, Stephen Glass, and just for old time's sake, because I knew him, Arthur Horsfield at number 9, Sissoko at number 10, and Andros Townsend at number 11.
Okay, Steve Hasty.
Right, I went Eric Steele in goal. I had a full-back pairing of Rose and Jan Matt, and I had a centre-back pairing of Roder and Fitzhall. He took wide midfielders were Barnes and Stephen Glass. In the midfield, I had Danny Gosling and Musa Sissoko. And up front, I went for 2 midgets in Malcolm Allen and Michael Chopra. And obviously went for Glenn Roder, who was player manager. I was toying with Pearson. I wasn't toying with Bill McGarry. But, so I went for Glenn.
And with those 2 up front in typical retro style, Newcastle will probably play the long ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, I had Robbie Elliott in goal in a 3-5-2 formation with the back 3 of Daryl Yadmack, Glenn Roder and Danny Rose. Sissoko was a hold midfielder with Glass and John Barnes as the wide men, with Gosling and Glenn Hodges in the middle, the man who made a fleeting appearance for us. Up front, I had Rambo O'Reilly and Les Ferdinand, who was on Watford's books and never played for them.
Ooh,
And
fantastic.
I had Pearson as the manager, because he managed both.
Well done, lads. A tough one, that. We've got Burnley next week. It's out the frying pan into the fire with that one.
Jesus.
Plenty coming up tonight. We still got a show to put out tonight because of what's happened today. We've got a tribute to Malcolm Dix and Sir John Hall. This is something which I've had for many years now, and I got Neil at Media Arts to tidy it up a little bit. It's an interview with Sir John and Malcolm. It's 90 minutes. It was down at Wynyard Hall at the specially done dinner to celebrate the Magpie Group, and that will be going out at 9 o'clock tonight. Cracking interview. It is me interviewing them. I look about 4 or 5 stone heavier in it, so you can see that I've definitely lost a bit of weight since then days. But that's on at 9 o'clock tonight. Don't forget as well, tomorrow we will be with Super Mac and Gibbo, but it will be a tribute to Malcolm tomorrow night. People sharing their memories, I guess, of Malcolm Dix. We'll still have a little bit of time, of course, to talk about Eddie Howe and Newcastle United in the present day, and we'll be doing a lot of that on Friday with the 3 amigos talking about Howe. So looking forward to that. This weekend, as you all know, I do a little bit of true crime content with a little bit of a twist. This is a great story. Paul Bogey, from heroin to hero. He was a drug addict based in Edinburgh. He's actually a Newcastle fan, but he was addicted to heroin, which of course forced him into a life of crime, but woke up one morning and decided to change his life. And when he got to the age of 30, he was inaugurated into the Royal Scots Guardsmen. So a hell of a story, from heroin to hero. It's a cracking book. You can get it on Amazon. That will be going out on Saturday. Don't want to say too much about Mick Lowes. I had a lot of people asking. It's not my place to say. Mick isn't well at the moment, unfortunately. So Mick will be having a bit of time off from the show. He sends on his regards to everybody. And I'm sure that Mick will make some kind of announcement in due course. Hopefully, he will recuperate and he will be back. But we send our wishes and best wishes to Mick. This weekend, we will be doing a new show, which will involve two of the guys on screen. Stu and Mitch will be sitting with Al Walid to fill in for Mick Lowes this weekend and hopefully for the next few weeks to give a Middle Eastern perspective on Newcastle United and what is going on at the moment. So looking forward to joining the guys on screen this weekend. But that's all for tonight. We'll be back with a retro show next week for Burnley. Thanks a lot, lads. Take care.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheerio. Ta-ra, everybody.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.